She was publicly slapped at the altar by her billionaire husband, but her mother's hidden truth turned the whole wedding upside down. I want you to close your eyes and imagine this. You're standing at an altar in a custom Virawang gown. 400 guests are watching you. The man you're about to marry leans in close, and instead of whispering something romantic, he hisses, "You just embarrassed me in front of everyone, you ungrateful little bitch." Before you can respond, his hand connects with your face so hard that your grandmother's diamond earring flies off into the white roses at your feet. The sound echoes through the chapel. 400 people gasp. Phone cameras rise like a wave. And in that moment, you realize the worst mistake of your life is happening in real time, in front of everyone you've ever known. That was my wedding day. But here's what nobody expected. What happened in the next 60 seconds didn't just expose my husband. It exposed a 30-year-old secret that destroyed his entire family. My mother stood up from her seat, walked down that aisle, and revealed a truth so devastating that my abusive billionaire husband and his father both ended up in handcuffs before the reception even started. If you've ever ignored red flags because someone seemed perfect on paper, if you've ever been told you're overreacting when your gut was screaming danger, if you've ever wondered why you stayed when you should have run, this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button right now because what my mother revealed in front of 400 guests changed everything. And I mean everything. The video went viral. 80 million views in 24 hours. But the real story, the one I'm about to tell you, is so much deeper than what those cameras caught. Let me take you back to the beginning, because the truth is, I should have seen it coming. Or maybe I did, and I just convinced myself I was strong enough to handle it. I need you to understand something before I go any further. I am not the kind of woman who gets pushed around. I was raised by a mother who became a federal prosecutor by 35, a grandmother who survived segregation and still managed to own 3 properties in Southeast DC, and a father who taught me that my voice matters just as much as any man's. I have a PhD in clinical psychology. My dissertation was on generational trauma and breaking cycles of abuse in families. The irony of that will hit you in a minute. I've been published in 3 academic journals. I've spoken at conferences about recognizing patterns of coercive control. I counsel women for a living, helping them see what they can't see when they're in it. So when people ask me how I ended up at an altar with a man who would slap me in front of everyone we knew, I have to take them back 18 months. Because monsters don't introduce themselves as monsters. They introduce themselves as princes. I met Maxwell Sterling at a medical conference in Boston. I was presenting my research on trauma responses in survivors of intimate partner violence. He was there as a donor. His family owns Sterling Pharmaceuticals. You've probably seen their name on half the medications in your cabinet. Generational wealth. The kind of money that doesn't just open doors, it owns the entire building. He walked up to me after my presentation, tall, 6'3", with that kind of polished handsomeness that comes from personal trainers and dermatologists in tailored suits that cost more than my monthly rent. His smile was perfect. Too perfect, I'd realize later. Everything about Maxwell Sterling was rehearsed. "Dr. Morrison," he said, extending his hand. "That was a fascinating presentation. Particularly your point about how abusers often select partners who are strong, not weak. It contradicts what most people assume." I shook his hand. His grip was firm but not aggressive, professional. "Most people don't understand that abusers don't want weak partners," I said. "They want the challenge of breaking someone strong. It feeds their ego more." He laughed, a warm, genuine sound that I'd later learn he could turn on and off like a faucet. "I'd love to hear more about your research. Can I buy you a coffee?" Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a walk along the Charles River. He asked intelligent questions about my work. He told me about his frustrations with his family's company, how he wanted to do more than just profit from people's illnesses, how he was planning to launch a foundation for mental health research. He seemed passionate, genuine, safe. "My mother died from complications of untreated depression," he said, as we stood on a bridge watching the water. "I was 16. I've always felt like if we'd had better resources, better understanding, she might still be here." I touched his arm. Comfort came naturally to me. It's what I do. I'm so sorry, Maxwell. That must have been devastating. He looked at me with these eyes that seemed so vulnerable, so hurt. It's why your work matters to me. You're literally saving lives by helping people understand these patterns. How could I not fall for that? A man who seemed to care about the same things I did. A man who saw my work as important, not as something to compete with or diminish. A man who was handsome and wealthy, but seemed humble about it. He was everything I wanted. The courtship happened fast, maybe too fast, but I told myself that when you know, you know. He flew me to New York for weekends at his penthouse, sent flowers to my office every Friday, bought out an entire theater so we could watch my favorite film in private, introduced me to his friends at exclusive restaurants where the waiters knew his name and his order. He made me feel special, chosen, like I was the only woman in the world. My best friend Simone was excited for me at first. "Girl, you finally found someone who matches your energy," she said when I showed her photos of a weekend in the Hamptons. "He's gorgeous, he's rich, and he actually supports your career. Don't let him get away." My father was cautiously optimistic. "He treats you well?" He asked when I brought Maxwell home for Sunday dinner the first time. "He treats me like a queen, Daddy," I said. My father nodded slowly. "Good, because you deserve nothing less. But baby, take your time. There's no rush." My mother was the only one who seemed worried. She watched Maxwell carefully that first dinner, asked him pointed questions about his family, his values, his plans. I noticed her exchanging looks with my grandmother, but I didn't understand them then. After Maxwell left that night, my mother pulled me aside. "Nia, baby, I need to ask you something. Are you happy with him? I mean truly happy, in your gut?" "Mom, of course I am. He's amazing." She held my hands and looked into my eyes. "I'm just saying, take your time getting to know him. Some men, they show you one face until they have you locked in. Then the mask comes off." I laughed. "Mom, I literally study this for a living. I know what red flags look like. Maxwell isn't like that." She didn't look convinced, but she nodded. "Okay, baby, I trust your judgment. Just keep your eyes open." I should have listened to her. I should have paid attention to what happened next. The red flags started small. So small, I almost didn't notice them. Or maybe I noticed and told myself they didn't matter. 3 months into our relationship, we were getting ready for a gala. I came out of the bathroom with my hair in its natural curls, big and full and beautiful. Maxwell looked at me, and his smile faltered for just a second. "You look gorgeous," he said. "But have you thought about straightening it? For tonight, I mean. It's a formal event." "My hair is fine the way it is," I said, keeping my voice light. Of course. I just meant, polished, professional." "Never mind, you look beautiful either way." But he kept glancing at my hair all night. And the next time we had a formal event, he casually mentioned a stylist who could give me a silk press. I told myself it wasn't about control. He just wanted me to look my best. That's what I told myself. Then there were the clothes. He'd buy me designer dresses and seemed disappointed when I chose to wear my own style instead. "I bought you that Dior gown," he'd say. "Don't you like it?" "I love it, Maxwell. I'm just more comfortable in this. But the Dior would photograph better. And there will be photographers tonight." I started wearing the clothes he bought. It was easier than the subtle disappointment in his eyes when I didn't. 4 months in, he made his first comment about my neighborhood. We were driving through Southeast DC to my parents' house, and he locked the car doors at a red light. "This area's pretty rough," he said, looking around nervously. "Have your parents ever thought about moving somewhere safer? This is where I grew up, Maxwell. This is my community. These are good people." "I'm sure they are. I just mean, statistically, the crime rates in this area. I worry about you visiting here. I visit here every week. I'm fine." He reached over and squeezed my hand. I know. I just care about you. Is that so wrong?" I squeezed back, reassuring him, always reassuring him. I didn't realize yet that this was the pattern. Him expressing concern that was really criticism. Me comforting him for insulting my life. 6 months in, he proposed. He did it at the annual Sterling Foundation Gala in front of 300 people. He got down on one knee on stage, right after giving a speech about the importance of family and legacy. The spotlight hit us. The crowd went silent. He pulled out a ring that had to be 10 carats, surrounded by smaller diamonds that caught every light in the ballroom. "Nia Morrison," he said loudly, his voice carrying through the microphone still clipped to his collar. "You are the most extraordinary woman I've ever met. You're brilliant, you're beautiful, and you've made me want to be a better man. Will you marry me?" The crowd erupted in applause before I'd even answered. 300 people on their feet, cheering, cameras flashing, everyone watching, waiting, expecting. How do you say no in that moment? How do you say, "Can we discuss this in private," when 3 who and dread strangers are witnessing what they think is the most romantic moment of your life? I said yes. What else could I say? The ring slid onto my finger, cold and heavy. Maxwell kissed me, and the crowd roared louder. Champagne appeared. People I'd never met congratulated me. And somewhere in the chaos, I caught my mother's face in the crowd. She wasn't smiling. She looked terrified. That should have told me everything I needed to know. The fact that he didn't ask me in private, in some intimate moment that belonged just to us. He asked me when refusing would have meant public humiliation, control disguised as romance, a preview of everything that would come next. The engagement period lasted 10 months. 10 months of systematically losing pieces of myself so slowly I didn't notice until I looked in the mirror one day and barely recognized the woman staring back. His mother, Patricia Sterling, made her position clear at our first lunch together. Just the 2 of us at some country club where everyone was white and everyone knew her name. She air-kissed me on both cheeks, leaving lipstick marks I had to wipe away. "Nia," she said, looking me up and down. "What an unusual name. Is it African?" "It's Swahili. It means purpose." "How exotic." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Maxwell has always been drawn to exotic things. He collects African art, you know, sculptures, masks, that sort of thing. The comparison wasn't subtle. I was another exotic object for her son's collection. Over oysters I didn't order and white wine I didn't want, Patricia asked me about my family. "And what does your father do?" "He owns a construction company. He built it from the ground up." "How industrious." "And your mother?" "She's a federal prosecutor. She's argued cases before the Supreme Court." That made Patricia pause. Just for a second. The power dynamic shifted slightly. My mother wasn't someone she could dismiss easily. "I see. Well, that's quite impressive." Then she leaned in, her voice dropping to something almost conspiratorial. "I want to be honest with you. Nia Maxwell's previous girlfriends have all come from families we've known for generations. They understood the expectations, the responsibilities that come with the Sterling name. This will be an adjustment for you." "I'm a quick learner," I said, keeping my voice steady, even though I wanted to throw my wine in her face. "I'm sure you are, but there are certain standards, etiquette, social graces, the way one carries oneself in our circles. I've taken the liberty of enrolling you in a finishing course. It starts next month. A finishing course. Just to polish some of the rougher edges, you understand. I didn't take the course. That was one of my small rebellions. But Patricia never let me forget it. Every family dinner, every social event, she'd make little comments. "Oh, that's not quite how we hold a wine glass in our family." Interesting choice of conversation topic. Maxwell's ex-girlfriend, Brittany, always knew exactly what to wear to these events. Brittany. Madison. Caroline. She dropped their names like landmines. All blonde, all from old money, all, I gathered, appropriately submissive. Maxwell started changing too, or maybe the mask was just slipping. 8 months before the wedding, he told me he thought I should take a break from my practice. We were in his penthouse. I just told him about a breakthrough with one of my clients, a young woman who'd finally found the courage to leave her abuser. I was excited, energized by the work. "That's great, babe," Maxwell said, not looking up from his phone. "But you know, once we're married, you won't need to work so much. You could focus on the foundation instead." "I love my work, Maxwell. These women need me. The foundation serves women too. It's just more prestigious work, you know? More fitting for a Sterling." "More fitting?" He finally looked up. I didn't mean it like that. I just meant, you're going to be my wife. You should be working on things that reflect well on both of us, not, dealing with hood drama all day. Hood drama, that's what he called the women I counseled. Women escaping violence. Women fighting for their lives. Maxwell, my work is important. I know. I'm just saying, think about it. He came over and kissed my forehead. I want you to have time to focus on us, on our life together. Is that so wrong? There it was again, that phrase, is that so wrong, making me comfort him for hurting me. I didn't quit my practice, but I cut back my hours. Compromise, I told myself. Relationships require compromise. Then he started in on my friends, Simone especially. She'd been my best friend since undergrad. She was loud, opinionated, hilarious, and she didn't trust Maxwell from the start. There's something off about him, she told me over drinks. I can't put my finger on it, but girl, watch yourself. When I mentioned to Maxwell that Simone and I were planning a girls' weekend, he frowned. I don't think Simone is a good influence on you, he said. Excuse me? She's always trying to put negative thoughts in your head about us. I think she's jealous, honestly. You're moving up in the world, and she's stuck in the same place. Simone is my best friend. She's a corporate attorney. She's hardly stuck anywhere. I'm just saying, once we're married, you need to surround yourself with people who support us, not people who try to tear us down. I went on the girls' weekend, but the seed was planted. The next time Simone criticized Maxwell, I defended him. Then I stopped telling her things. Then I started seeing her less. The isolation was so gradual I didn't notice until she and I went from talking every day to talking once a month. 3 months before the wedding, everything nearly fell apart. Simone showed up at my apartment, unannounced. She had her laptop and a look on her face I'd never seen before. We need to talk, she said. She showed me photos. Maxwell at a hotel bar with a woman I recognized, one of my bridesmaids actually, Jessica. They were close, too close. His hand on her lower back, her laughing, touching his arm. A kiss in the parking lot. I hired a private investigator, Simone said. Nia, this isn't the first time. There have been at least 3 others during your engagement. I stared at the photos. My hands were shaking. Why would you do this? Because you're my best friend, and you're about to marry a man who doesn't deserve you. I confronted Maxwell that night, showed him the photos, demanded the truth, and he cried, actual tears streaming down his face. He dropped to his knees in front of me, grabbed my hands, and sobbed. I'm so sorry, he choked out. It was nothing. It meant nothing. I've been so stressed about the wedding, about living up to my father's expectations, about being good enough for you. I made a terrible mistake. Please, Nia, please forgive me. I can't lose you. I can't live without you. He looked so broken, so genuinely devastated, and I wanted to believe him because the alternative was admitting I'd wasted 18 months of my life. The alternative was canceling a wedding that was 3 months away, returning, gifts, facing everyone's questions, proving my mother right. So I forgave him. He promised it would never happen again, swore on his mother's grave. We went to couples counseling for exactly 2 sessions before he said the therapist was biased against him and refused to go back. I should have left then. Dr. Nia Morrison, who counsels women on recognizing these exact patterns, should have recognized her own red flags. But that's the thing about being in it. You can't see the forest when you're standing among the trees. The wedding preparations consumed the last 3 months. Patricia took over everything. The venue, the flowers, the menu, the guest list. My opinions were politely noted and completely ignored. This is how we do weddings in our family, she'd say whenever I protested. I got to choose one thing. My dress. I wore my grandmother's gown. Vintage lace from 1955, the dress she'd worn when she married my grandfather. My mother had offered hers, but something about wearing Grandma Ruth's felt right. It felt like armor, like carrying the strength of the women who came before me. The night before the wedding, Maxwell insisted we spend apart. Traditional, he said. I stayed in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house. Couldn't sleep. Just lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to quiet the voice in my head that kept screaming run. At 5 in the morning, my grandmother came in. She sat on the edge of my bed in the darkness. "Baby girl," she said softly. "You awake?" "Yes, ma'am." She took my hand. Her skin was paper thin, soft, mapped with veins and decades of life. "I'm going to say something, and I need you to really hear me. It's not too late to walk away." "Grandma," "Hush now, let me finish. I've been married 60 years. I know what a good marriage looks like, and I know what the other kind looks like too. I've seen how that boy looks at you. Like you're something he owns, not someone he loves. I've watched you get smaller and quieter these past months, trying to fit yourself into a box that wasn't made for you." Tears started sliding down my face. "I love him. Do you? Or do you love who he pretended to be at the beginning?" I didn't have an answer for that. She squeezed my hand. "Pride heals, baby. A broken spirit sometimes doesn't. If you walk away today, I'll be proud of you. If you go through with it, I'll support you. But I need you to know you have a choice. You always have a choice." We sat there in the dark for a long time. Finally, she kissed my forehead and left. At 7, my mother came in. She looked like she hadn't slept either. She sat where my grandmother had been sitting. "Mom, Nia, I need to tell you something about the Sterling family." My heart started pounding. "What about them?" She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. She looked like she was in physical pain. "Mom, what is it?" She took a deep breath. There's something you should know before you marry into that family. Something about Maxwell's father. Something I should have told you months ago, but My phone rang. "Maxwell." I held up a finger to my mother and answered. "Hey, I can't really talk right now. Where are the cufflinks?" His voice was sharp, irritated. "The platinum ones my father wore at his wedding. They were supposed to be with my tux, and they're not here." "I don't know, Maxwell. Maybe check with your... This is exactly the kind of detail you were supposed to handle. This is important, Nia. This is my wedding day." Our wedding day, I thought. But I didn't say it. "I'll make some calls," I said quietly. "Just forget it. I'll handle it myself, like I handle everything." He hung up. I looked at my mother. "Sorry, what were you saying?" She stared at me for a long moment. Something shifted in her face. "Resolution, maybe. Or resignation. After the ceremony," she said. "We'll talk after the ceremony. It's important, baby. Really important. Don't let me forget." "Okay, Mom. After the ceremony." She hugged me tight. Too tight, like she was trying to hold me together. Or maybe holding herself together. "I love you so much," she whispered. "No matter what happens today, remember that. I love you, and everything I do is to protect you." It was a strange thing to say. I didn't understand it then. The morning passed in a blur of hair and makeup, and my bridesmaids chattering nervously. Jessica, the one from the photos, kept avoiding my eyes. I'd let her stay in the wedding party because Maxwell had begged me, said cutting her would raise questions and embarrass us both. So there she was, zipping up my grandmother's dress, her hands on. The same lace Maxwell had touched when he'd cheated on me with her. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Maxwell. The flowers were wrong. The musicians were late. My nephew was crying too loud during rehearsal. Everything was a catastrophe, and somehow everything was my fault. At 1 o'clock, my father knocked on the bridal suite door. "Baby girl," he said. "It's time." He looked at me standing there in my grandmother's dress, and his eyes filled with tears. "You look just like her," he said. "Just like Mama Ruth on her wedding day." "Daddy, you don't have to do this." His voice cracked. "If you want to walk out that back door right now, I'll go with you. We can be in the car and gone before anyone notices." "Daddy." "I'm serious, Nia. Your mother told me. She tried to tell you something this morning about the Sterling family. Whatever it is, it's bad enough that she's been sick with worry for months. Bad enough that she's planning to..." He stopped himself. "Just, if you want to leave, we leave. Right now." 400 people were waiting. The ceremony was supposed to start in 5 minutes. My entire family was out there. Maxwell's business associates, society reporters, photographers. The venue alone had cost $300,000. But more than that, I'd invested 18 months of my life. I'd changed myself, compromised my values, isolated myself from friends, convinced myself this was love. Walking away meant admitting I'd been wrong about everything. It meant facing my mother's "I told you so" eyes. It meant proving I was the kind of woman who couldn't make a relationship work with a good man. Except he wasn't a good man. I knew that by then. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. "I'm okay, Daddy," I heard myself say. "Let's do this." He searched my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, baby. But I'm right here, the whole time. You need me, you just look at me." The music started, canon in D, because that's what Patricia had chosen. My father offered his arm and I took it. The doors opened. 400 faces turned to look at me. And there, at the end of that endless white aisle, stood Maxwell Sterling, the man I was about to promise my life to. The man who would hit me in front of all these people in less than 20 minutes. The walk down that aisle felt like walking to my own execution, each step in time with the music. My father's arm steady under my hand. 400 people smiling at me like this was the happiest day of my life. Flashbulbs popping. Someone's baby crying in the back. The scent of white roses so strong it was almost suffocating. I could see Maxwell at the altar. He wasn't smiling. His jaw was tight. His eyes were cold. I knew that look. That was his anger look. The one he got when I'd disappointed him somehow. What had I done wrong this time? Was it the phone call about the cufflinks? Was it something else? My mind raced through possibilities, trying to figure out how to fix it before I even reached him. That's what he'd trained me to do. Manage his emotions, fix his problems, keep him happy. I was walking down the aisle at my own wedding, and instead of feeling joy, I was feeling anxiety about what I'd done to upset him. My mother was in the front row. She was gripping my grandmother's hand so tight her knuckles were white. When I caught her eye, she mouthed something. I couldn't tell what. Maybe "I love you." Maybe "I'm sorry." Maybe "don't do this." I kept walking. I reached the altar. My father lifted my veil and kissed my cheek. "I love you, baby girl," he whispered. Then he shook Maxwell's hand, and I saw him grip it just a little too hard. A warning. A father's last attempt to protect his daughter. Maxwell barely noticed. He was staring at me with those cold eyes. The officiant began. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the joining of Maxwell Richard Sterling and Nia Janelle Morrison in holy matrimony." I barely heard the words. My heart was pounding too loud. Maxwell's hand holding mine was too tight. Not romantic tight, controlling tight. His thumb pressing into my palm hard enough to hurt. The officiant talked about love and commitment and partnership, about how marriage is a sacred bond, about how it requires honesty and respect and mutual care. The irony was almost funny. Almost. We got to the vows. Maxwell went first. He pulled out a piece of paper and read in a flat, mechanical voice, "Nia, I promise to love you and cherish you for all the days of my life. I promise to honor you and respect you. I promise to build a life with you that reflects the values and standards of our families." Our families. Not us. Our families. Specifically, his family. Their values. Their standards. Then it was my turn. I'd written my vows weeks ago, practiced them in the mirror. They were safe, traditional, exactly what Patricia had expected when she'd reviewed them. Yes, she'd reviewed them, made suggestions about removing anything too emotional or too personal, but standing there with Maxwell's cold eyes on me and his painful grip on my hand and 400 people watching, something inside me snapped, or maybe something that had been broken finally healed enough to fight back. I didn't pull out my prepared vows. Instead, I just started talking. "Maxwell," I said, "when I met you, I thought I'd found a partner, someone who saw me, valued me, respected the work I do and the woman I am. I thought I was gaining a husband, but over these past 18 months I've realized something. Love isn't supposed to make you smaller. It's supposed to help you grow." Maxwell's eyes narrowed. His grip on my hand tightened even more. I kept going. I want to acknowledge the people who raised me to know my worth. My father, who built something from nothing and taught me that hard work matters more than last names. My mother, who showed me that a woman can be powerful and compassionate at the same time. My grandmother, who survived things I can't even imagine and still taught me to lead with love. I turned slightly to look at them in the front row. My father was sitting forward. My mother had tears streaming down her face. My grandmother was nodding slowly, like she knew what was coming. I also want to acknowledge the community that shaped me. Southeast DC, the neighborhood Maxwell calls rough, but that I call home. The women I counsel, the ones he calls hood drama, but who I know are warriors fighting battles most people can't imagine. The chapel had gone quiet. You could hear people shifting uncomfortably. Maxwell's family looked horrified. His mother's mouth was literally hanging open. His father's face was red with anger. Because the truth is, I continued, where you come from matters. Who raised you matters. The values you're taught matter. And I was taught that marriage should be built on respect, on equality, on genuine love, not control disguised as care. Nia. Maxwell's voice was low, dangerous. A warning. What are you doing? The officiant looked confused. Perhaps we should. I'm not finished, I said clearly, loudly enough that everyone could hear. Maxwell dropped my hand and grabbed my arm instead, hard, his fingers digging into my flesh. He leaned in close, and that's when he said it. You just embarrassed me in front of everyone, you ungrateful little bitch. 400 people. 400 witnesses. And he thought he could whisper it quietly enough that they wouldn't hear, but the officiant's microphone was right next to us. It picked up every word. The sound system broadcasted through the entire chapel. The gasps were immediate, audible, a wave of shock moving through the crowd. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in 18 months, I saw him clearly. Not the prince he'd pretended to be, not the victim he played when I caught him cheating, not the concerned partner who just wanted the best for me. I saw the real Maxwell Sterling, the abuser, the controller, the man who thought he could own me. Let go of my arm, I said quietly. We need to finish this ceremony, and then we're going to have a serious conversation about respect and knowing your place. Let go of my arm. You don't give me orders. You're about to be my wife, which means... That's when he hit me. His open palm across my left cheek. Hard, vicious. The crack of it echoed through the chapel like a gunshot. My head snapped to the side. My grandmother's earring, the diamond one she'd worn at her own wedding, flew off my ear and bounced across the white marble floor. For a second, the world went completely silent, like someone had hit mute on reality. Then the gasps, the screams, chairs scraping as people stood up, my father roaring my name and moving toward the altar, my brother Devin vaulting over the pew in front of him, phones appearing everywhere, hundreds of them, cameras pointed at us. I stood there with my hand on my burning cheek, tasting blood where my teeth had cut the inside of my mouth, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 18 months. Clarity. Pure, cold, absolute clarity. Maxwell's face shifted immediately. Rage to panic in a heartbeat. He realized what he'd done, where he'd done it, who had seen it. Nia, I'm sorry. I didn't mean, the stress. I would never. He reached for me. I stepped back, away from him, away from his excuses and his manipulation and his control. My father and brother reached the altar. My father moved between me and Maxwell, and I'd never seen that expression on his face before. Pure protective fury. Don't you touch her, my father said, his voice deadly quiet. Don't you even look at her. Sir, this is a misunderstanding. She was saying things, embarrassing me. You just put your hands on my daughter in front of God and everyone. There's no misunderstanding about that. Maxwell's father, Richard, stood up from his seat. Now see here, this is clearly a miscommunication. Maxwell, apologize to your bride, and let's continue with the ceremony. We have 400 guests. Sit down, Richard. The voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Strong, clear, authoritative. My mother, she was standing in the front row. still in her mother-of-the-bride dress, champagne-colored silk that she'd spent months choosing. But she didn't look like a wedding guest anymore. She looked like the federal prosecutor she was. The woman who'd argued cases in front of the Supreme Court. The woman who'd sent powerful men to prison. She stepped out of the pew and walked down the aisle toward the altar. 400 people watched her in complete silence. Even Maxwell shut up. She walked right past Maxwell without looking at him, came straight to me, gently took my face in her hands and examined my cheek. I could see her jaw clenching, could see her fighting for control. "I should have told you weeks ago," she said softly, just to me. "I'm telling you now. And I'm telling everyone." "Mom, what?" She turned to face the crowd, faced all 400 people with their phones and their shock and their hungry attention. "My name is Diana Morrison," she said. Her voice carried through the chapel naturally. She didn't need a microphone. She'd spent 20 years making herself heard in courtrooms. "I'm a federal prosecutor. I've been a judge. I've spent my entire career fighting for justice, for victims, for people who couldn't fight for themselves. And I have stayed silent about something for 32 years because I was paid to, because I signed papers that said I would never speak about it. But watching that man hit my daughter at her own wedding broke something in me. So I'm going to break my silence." Richard Sterling went pale, actually pale. He started to stand up, but Patricia grabbed his arm and pulled him back down. She knew. Oh God, Patricia knew. My mother continued. 32 years ago, I was 23 years old. I was in law school at Georgetown. I was dating a man from a very wealthy family, a man who seemed perfect, charming, successful, from an important family. His name was Richard Sterling. The chapel erupted in whispers. Maxwell's head whipped around to look at his father. I just stared at my mother, trying to process what she was saying. "We dated for 8 months, my mother said. He proposed. I said yes. We were engaged for 6 months, and during those 6 months Richard Sterling became someone else. Or maybe he just stopped pretending. He criticized everything about me, my clothes, my hair, my family, my neighborhood, my friends. He wanted to control where I went, who I saw, what I said. And when I pushed back, when I stood up for myself, he got violent." She paused, took a breath. I could see her hands shaking slightly, but her voice stayed steady. It started with grabbing, then pushing. Then one night at his family's estate, at a dinner with his parents, I disagreed with something his father said. Something about welfare recipients and personal responsibility. I was studying poverty law at the time, and I had opinions, strong ones. Richard told me to be quiet. I refused, and right there, at that dinner table, in front of his parents, he slapped me across the face. Oh my God, the parallel, the exact same pattern. His father laughed, my mother said, and her voice finally cracked. Richard Sterling Sr. laughed and said, "That's how you handle an uppity woman, son. Good job." And Patricia, his mother, just looked away, pretended it didn't happen. They finished their dinner like nothing was wrong. I looked at Patricia. She was crying silently, her face buried in her hands. 30 years of her own abuse suddenly exposed. I broke off the engagement that night, my mother continued. I packed my things and left. And the next day, their lawyers showed up at my apartment with a check for $500,000 and a non-disclosure agreement. They said if I ever spoke about Richard's abuse, about the violence, about anything that happened during our relationship, they would bury me in legal fees. They would ruin my career before it even started. They would destroy my family's reputation. So I took the money. I used it to pay for law school, and I signed the papers. And I never told anyone, not even my parents, about what really happened. She looked at me. I didn't tell you because I thought, maybe Maxwell was different. Maybe he wasn't like his father. Maybe the pattern wouldn't repeat. I watched you with him for months, and I saw the same signs, the control, the isolation, the subtle put-downs. But I convinced myself I was being paranoid, that I was projecting my own trauma onto your relationship. Tears were streaming down her face now. But then Patricia came to me 6 months ago. She showed up at my office, and she offered me $2 million to break up you and Maxwell, to get you away from her son, because she knew. She knew Maxwell was just like Richard. She knew the cycle was repeating. She's lived with Richard's abuse for 33 years. She's watched him hurt her, control her, diminish her, and she couldn't bear to watch her son do the same thing to you. All eyes turned to Patricia. She was sobbing openly now, her whole body shaking, her carefully maintained facade completely shattered. "I didn't take the money," my mother said. "I told Patricia that I couldn't make my daughter's choices for her, that you had to see it for yourself. But I should have told you the truth then. I should have broken the NDA then. I should have protected you from ever getting to this point." She walked over to Richard Sterling, looked down at him with absolute contempt. "I'm a federal judge now. I've spent 30 years building the power to destroy men like you. And that NDA you made me sign? I'm breaking it right now. Sue me. Please. I would love to face you in court and expose every detail of your abuse in front of a jury. I would love to subpoena your medical records, your therapy records, every police report that your money made disappear. I would love to put Patricia on the witness stand and let her finally tell the truth about what you've done to her for 3 decades. Richard's face was purple with rage. "You have no idea what you've just done. My lawyers will—" "Your lawyers will do nothing," my mother interrupted, "because NDAs signed under duress to cover up criminal activity are not legally enforceable. I've been waiting 30 years for you to make the mistake of threatening me. Thank you for doing it in front of 400 witnesses." She pulled out her phone, held it up. "I have copies of everything. The original NDA, the bank records showing the payment, the hospital records from when Richard broke my wrist and his family doctor listed it as a fall, the photos I took of the bruises. Statement Patricia gave me 6 months ago, notarized and sealed, describing 33 years of abuse. I've been building a case against you for months, Richard. And now I'm going to destroy you the same way you tried to destroy me." The chapel was in absolute chaos now. People shouting, crying, Maxwell's business partners heading for the exits, reporters on their phones, my family standing together in solidarity. Maxwell was backing away from the altar, looking between his father and my mother like his whole world was collapsing. Which it was. My mother came back to me, took my hands. "Baby, I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I'm so sorry I let you get this far. But I'm telling you now, and I'm telling everyone, the Sterling men don't change. It's generational. It's learned. Richard learned it from his father. Maxwell learned it from Richard. And if you marry him, your children will learn it from Maxwell. This is your chance to break the cycle." I looked at Maxwell. He was trying to compose himself, trying to find his footing. And when he spoke, he proved everything my mother had just said. "This is insane," he said, his voice rising. "You're going to believe this ghetto gold digger over my family? She signed an NDA and now she's breaking it for attention, for money. This is a shakedown, can't you all see that? Ghetto." Just like his father, the same words, the same contempt, the same pattern. I walked over to the officiant. The poor man was frozen, holding his Bible like a shield. "Can I borrow your microphone?" I asked. He handed it over without a word. I turned to face the 400 guests. My cheek was throbbing where Maxwell had hit me. I could feel it swelling. I probably looked like a disaster. Makeup running, hair disheveled. My grandmother's dress wrinkled where Maxwell had grabbed me. But I'd never felt more powerful in my life. "Hi, everyone," I said into the microphone. My voice echoed through the chapel. "Thank you for coming to what was supposed to be my wedding. I'm sorry you traveled here for nothing. But I need to tell you some things before you leave." Maxwell lunged toward me. "Nia, don't you dare." My brother Devin stepped in front of him. All 6 feet 4 inches and 220 pounds of protective older brother. "Touch her again and see what happens," Devin said calmly. Maxwell stopped. I continued. "My mother is telling the truth. I know that because I've spent the last 4 months documenting Maxwell's abuse. See, I'm a clinical psychologist who specializes in intimate partner violence. I know the patterns. I know the signs. And 4 months ago, after my best friend showed me photos of Maxwell cheating on me for the 3rd time, I started paying attention with my professional brain instead of my hopeful heart. I pulled out my phone. I have recordings of Maxwell screaming at me, calling me names that I won't repeat in a chapel. I have text messages of him telling my bridesmaids, specifically Jessica and Amanda, that marrying me was just for appearances, that he'd continue seeing them after the wedding, that I was too stupid to ever find out. Jessica and Amanda both went pale. Several people turned to stare at them. I have bank records showing that Maxwell has been embezzling from his own family's company. $3.7 million over 18 months, funneled through Shell corporations to fund a gambling habit that his family doesn't know about, or didn't know about. They do now. Richard stood up. This is slander. You have no proof. I have an entire forensic accounting report, I interrupted. I hired a firm 4 months ago. It's all documented, and I've already forwarded everything to the SEC. They're very interested. The business partners who'd been heading for the exits started moving faster. I also have medical records documenting the bruises on my arms from when Maxwell grabbed me, photos with timestamps, a statement from my therapist about the emotional abuse I've been experiencing, and now, thanks to everyone in this chapel, I have 400 witnesses to him hitting me at our own wedding. I looked directly at Maxwell. You inherit your father's violence. You learned it from watching how he treats your mother. And your mother, Patricia, has been trying to protect me from you. Because she knows. She knows what it's like to be trapped with a sterling man. She knows what 33 years of abuse feels like. And she didn't want that for me. I turned to Patricia. She was still crying, but she was looking at me now. Really looking at me. Mrs. Sterling, I hope you find the courage to leave him. My mother did. I'm doing it right now. You can too. It's never too late. Patricia let out a sob. For a moment, I thought she'd speak. But Richard grabbed her arm, the same way Maxwell had grabbed mine, and she went silent. Conditioned, trained, broken. Not me, though. Not anymore. I filed for an annulment this morning, I said to the crowd. My lawyer is here. She's been sitting in the back this whole time, waiting. The prenuptial agreement Maxwell forced me to sign has a clause about abuse voiding the entire contract. I insisted on that clause. Maxwell laughed at me when I did. Said I was paranoid. He signed it without reading it carefully. And now, thanks to him hitting me in front of 400 witnesses, many of whom filmed it, that clause is triggered. I pulled the engagement ring off my finger. 10 carats of blood diamonds. Maxwell, you can have this back. I don't want anything from you except my freedom. I threw the ring. It bounced off his chest and clattered to the floor. He didn't even try to catch it. To everyone who came here today, I'm sorry this turned into a spectacle. But I'm not sorry you witnessed it. Because silence protects abusers. Exposure stops them. If you recorded what happened here, please post it. Please share it. Let the world see who the Sterling men really are. Let every woman who's dating a Maxwell Sterling or a Richard Sterling see this and recognize the signs before it's too late. I looked at my mother. She was smiling through her tears. Proud. Finally able to stand in her truth after 32 years of silence. My mother taught me something today, I said. She taught me that it's never too late to use your voice. That breaking a silence, even one you were paid to keep, even one that might cost you, everything is worth it if it protects someone you love. She broke 32 years of silence to save me, and I'm using my voice right now to save myself. I handed the microphone back to the officiant. Then, I walked down the aisle, still in my grandmother's dress, my family falling in step around me. My mother on one side, my father on the other, my grandmother, my brother, my aunts and uncles and cousins, a wall of protection and love. Behind us, I could hear Maxwell shouting, his father screaming about lawsuits, his mother sobbing, the chaos of 400 people trying to process what they'd just witnessed. We walked out of that chapel and into the sunlight. Someone had started playing music on their phone. Not wedding music. Beyoncé. Freedom. It was perfect. Simone was waiting outside. She must have watched the whole thing from the back. She ran to me and pulled me into a hug. You did it, she whispered. Oh my God, Nia, you actually did it. We did it, I said, pulling my mother into the hug. Mom did it. She saved me. The three of us stood there crying and laughing while my family surrounded us. My father was already on the phone with our lawyer. My brother was making sure none of Maxwell's family tried to follow us. My grandmother was praying out loud, thanking God for protection and deliverance. And me? I was feeling something I hadn't felt in 18 months. Free. Completely, utterly free. The video went viral within hours. Someone had live-streamed the entire thing. By the time we got back to my parents' house, it had 15 million views. By the next morning, 80 million. The footage of Maxwell hitting me. My mother's revelation about Richard. My speech exposing everything. All of it captured and shared around the world. The media tried to control the narrative at first. Painted me as a scorned woman. A gold digger who'd orchestrated the whole thing for money and attention. But my mother held a press conference the next day. Showed all her evidence. Told her full story. And suddenly, the narrative shifted. It became a story about generational abuse, about wealthy families protecting abusers, about the courage it takes to speak up, about black women refusing to be silenced. If you've watched this far, if this story is resonating with you, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because the algorithm doesn't just push content, it pushes messages. And this message needs to reach every woman who's ignoring red flags, who's defending. A man who hurts her, who's convinced herself that love is supposed to be this hard. The legal fallout was swift and brutal. For the Sterlings, not for us. Maxwell was arrested for assault. 400 witnesses and dozens of videos made that an easy case. The SEC launched a full investigation into the embezzling. Turns out 3.7 million was just what I'd found. The actual number was closer to 12 million. The Sterling Pharmaceuticals Board forced both Richard and Maxwell to resign. Their stock dropped 40% in a week. Multiple women came forward after my mother's press conference. Women Richard had abused. Women he'd paid off. Women who'd been silenced by NDAs and fear and shame. With my mother leading the charge, 6 of them filed a class action lawsuit. Richard Sterling is currently facing criminal charges in 3 states. Patricia filed for divorce 3 weeks after the wedding that never was. She released her own statement describing 33 years of abuse. She started going to therapy. She reached out to me and my mother, and the 3 of us meet for coffee sometimes. 3 generations of women who escaped the same family of abusers. Maxwell tried to contact me for weeks, apologizing, begging, threatening, promising to change. The full cycle of abuser behavior. I blocked his number, got a restraining order, never responded to a single message. He violated the restraining order twice, spent a night in jail. That finally got through to him. As for me, 9 months later, I'm living my life in full color again. I finished my PhD. My dissertation was on generational patterns of abuse and the cycle-breaking power of public testimony. I dedicated it to my mother. It's being published as a book next spring. I defended it 3 weeks ago. My mother, grandmother, and Simone were all there. The committee gave me highest honors. I started a foundation with the settlement money from Maxwell. Yes, he had to pay me. The abuse clause in the prenup was ironclad. And with all that video evidence, his lawyers advised him to settle quietly. The foundation is called Breaking the Cycle. We provide legal resources, therapy, financial literacy classes, and safe housing for women leaving abusive relationships. My mother is co-director. We've helped 217 women in 9 months. I went back to my clinical practice full-time. I work with survivors of intimate partner violence. And now when I tell them I understand what they're going through, they know I'm not just saying it. I've been there. I've worn the engagement ring and made the excuses and convinced myself it would get better. I've felt the confusion of loving someone who hurts you, and I've felt the incredible power of finally choosing yourself. My relationship with my mother is deeper than ever. She told me the full story of her time with Richard, all the details she'd kept hidden for 32 years. We cried together, healed together, and now we work together to make sure other women don't have to stay silent the way she did. People ask me all the time if I regret saying yes to Maxwell's proposal, if I regret the 18 months I spent with him, if I regret walking down that aisle. Here's my honest answer. I regret not listening to the women who warned me. I regret losing time trying to be someone I wasn't. I regret hurting Simone by pushing her away when she was trying to protect me. I regret every compromise I made that chipped away at my sense of self. But I don't regret walking down that aisle, Because walking away from it, standing at that altar, and finally seeing clearly, using my voice in front of 400 people, that taught me something crucial. Your voice is your power. The moment you use it, everything changes. Not just for you, for everyone watching, for everyone who needed to see someone stand up and refuse to be diminished. My mother broke 32 years of silence and freed herself. I broke my silence and freed myself. And according to the messages I've received, thousands of women watched that video and found the courage to leave their own abusive relationships, to recognize their own red flags, to choose themselves. That's the real story, not the viral video, not the scandal, not the billionaire brought down. It's the ripple effect of speaking truth, of refusing to protect men who hurt us, of believing that we deserve better and demanding it publicly. My grandmother told me something a few weeks after the wedding. We were sitting on her porch, drinking sweet tea, and she said, 3 generations of women stood up that day. Me, who survived and taught your mother strength. Your mother, who escaped and built a life of power. And you, who exposed and broke the cycle for good. That's how we heal. Not alone, together, by speaking up. So the next generation doesn't have to suffer what we did. She's right. Healing isn't individual. It's communal. Every time a woman speaks up about abuse, she makes it easier for the next woman to do the same. Every time we refuse to protect powerful men's reputations at the expense of our own safety, we shift the culture. Every time we choose ourselves over the comfort of others, we teach young girls watching that they matter. I think about the woman I was 18 months ago, the one who met Maxwell at that conference and thought she'd found her prince, the one who ignored red flags and rationalized abuse and slowly disappeared into his expectations. I have compassion for her. She was doing the best she could with what she knew, but I'm so grateful I'm not her anymore. The woman I am now knows her worth, refuses to shrink for anyone, surrounds herself with people who celebrate her, not people who tolerate her, works every day to help other women find that same freedom. And she's happy, genuinely, deeply happy in a way that has nothing to do with a man or a ring or meeting someone else's standards. I'm dating again, slowly, carefully, with my eyes wide open. I went on a first date last month with a man I met at a conference. When he asked about my research, I told him the whole story. The viral video, the public exposure, the work I do now. I watched his face carefully to see how he'd react. He listened without interrupting, asked thoughtful questions. And then he said, "That took incredible courage. You should be proud." No defensiveness. No, not all men. No attempts to minimize or redirect. Just respect for my experience. We're going on a 4th date next week. I'm taking it slow, but I'm hopeful. And hope feels good. My mother is dating too. After 32 years of marriage to my father, which was good, but carried the shadow of trauma she'd never processed. They went to therapy together, worked through her hidden past, strengthened their foundation. They're more in love now than ever. Sometimes I see them holding hands at foundation events, and my heart swells with joy. And Patricia Sterling left Richard, bought herself a townhouse in Georgetown, cut off her controlling children, who sided with their father and started living for herself for the first time in 3 decades. She volunteers at our foundation, shares her story with other women trapped in marriages to powerful men. She's 61 years old and finally free. It's never too late. So here's what I want you to take away from this story. If you're watching this and seeing yourself in my journey, please hear me. The red flags you're ignoring won't go away. The behavior you're excusing won't improve. The man who controls you under the guise of loving you will not change just because you marry him or have his children or finally become perfect enough. You are already enough. You were always enough, and you deserve someone who sees that. If you're watching this and you're that someone's mother, sister, friend, the one who sees what they can't see yet, keep speaking up. Your voice matters. My mother's courage to finally break her silence literally saved my life. Your persistence might save someone you love. And if you're watching this as someone who's already left, who's already on the other side of abuse, building a new life, choosing yourself. I'm so proud of you. Keep going. Keep healing. Keep speaking your truth. You're not just saving yourself, you're lighting the path for others. Before I go, I want to say this. They said I was blessed to marry a billionaire. They said I should feel lucky, that I should be grateful a man like Maxwell chose me. But here's what I learned. Being chosen by the wrong person isn't a blessing. It's a test. And choosing yourself, walking away from what everyone says you should want, standing up in front of 400 people and refusing to be diminished, that's the real blessing. That slap at the altar wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my freedom. And every single day since then has been a gift. If this story touched you, if it resonated, if you know someone who needs to hear it, share this video. Leave a comment telling me what red flag you wish you'd recognize sooner. Let's learn from each other. Let's build a community of women who refuse to stay silent. Subscribe to this channel because I'm going to keep telling stories that matter. Stories about courage and healing and choosing yourself even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And remember this, your voice is your power. It doesn't matter if you've been silent for 32 years or 18 months or 32 minutes. The moment you choose to speak, everything changes. For you, for your daughter, for every woman watching and gathering courage from your example. They tried to silence me. They tried to silence my mother. They tried to make us small and quiet and grateful for scraps of respect. But we spoke up anyway, and we're still speaking, and we're not going to stop. Thank you for listening to my story. Now go live yours, loudly, unapologetically, freely. You deserve nothing less.